for example. But to be very frank to you, the post-COVID world has completely changed, and I know most of the industries and everybody is looking up to all the ecosystem to what exactly is going to happen. And cybersecurity is one of the most important area in which most of the industries are working on. And with AI coming in picture, especially the generative AI, this has become a very important area, crucial element for all the industries to work on. With this theme in the picture, we have our guest, Dr. Monisha, with us. To very frank, her profile is illustrious and it's huge. And I would say I don't know whether I can actually summarize it completely. So I'm sorry to making it slightly short, but I'll come back to you on this aspect because I'm very curious to know more about your profile. So just for the audience, Dr. Monisha Oberoi is a seasoned C-suite executive and a board member with over 24 years experience across various sectors like telecom, banking, retail, healthcare, and publishing. She has a track record in delivering sequential sales growth in Asia Pacific region, matching global IT operations. She is recognized for her visionary leadership, having driven technological innovation and complex business turnarounds, and her expertise spans from cybersecurity, system integration, and digital transformation. She holds a PhD in business management from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and she's a champion of diversity and inclusion. She is the first woman co-chair of the cybersecurity committee at the American Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, and also the author of the book Transformation Outsourcing. And to be very frank, I'm very, very thanked that Dr. Oberoi that you have given your time to us for this. Welcome to the show. But before that, seriously, I have very rarely seen people who have experience in media, telecom, cybersecurity. I mean, it's all different fields, and especially if you're a 90s kid or an 80s kid, these are entirely different East and West elements. So, how you have covered all those things in your career? I mean, if you can just give a brief of your career, exactly how the journey is, and that will be very good element for us to exactly to make more of a career journey, because today's kids are seriously stressed on exactly how the career will look like. But I think you're the best example to move forward. So over to you, ma'am, on this.
Thank you, Dr. Akhil. Such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you and with all the students of IILM and your entire network. It's absolutely a pleasure and an honor. So thank you very much for that to start with. I also want to mention, Akhil, your voice is not coming very clearly, so there's some challenge, I think, with your audio. But I got the gist of your question, so I'm trying, add something here. To be very honest, I think life has its own way. I'm not as planned as it appears through my resume that I would have planned to do certain things. It just so happened. It's true that engineering was a field by choice, which I took on, and I did my engineering in electronics. Post that, I think everything just happened. You got interested and did certain things. Media, when I joined media, it was just like I used to do a lot of debates and stuff like that in my college and in my school. And somebody just mentioned to me that, have you ever thought of becoming a newscaster? And it just started like a joke. And I applied to the then only private channel called Z News. And lo and behold, I got selected. And because I came with a technical background, I told them that I can only be a freelancer. I just as a hobby, as a freelancing, I will do my media. So I always was a part of the corporate sector in telecom. And media was a hobby for me. But the hobby went on for almost 20 years, Akhil. So that is how media happened. My husband is a PhD, and I used to correct his thesis when I got married. I used to sit and correct his thesis because, if you keep reading your thesis over and over again, you don't catch the mistakes, right? So I was like the new eyes reading his thesis. And I thought, if he can do it, so can I. And that's where the germ started. And, along my journey as I went along, I took it as a challenge that I would like to do my PhD. And I was very fortunate that I got my admission in IIT Delhi, and I made it there. Post that, I think, Akhil, just want to give a flavor, right? Because there are a lot of kids who are listening to us, and a lot of us put ceilings on our own side, right? We think this is the max I can go to, but that's not really true, right? I've changed countries. I've changed, I've moved around countries and worked. I'm currently on the board of AmCham, which is a second tenure I'm running. right? I was the first cybersecurity, co-chair, as you call it on AmCham. What I'm really trying to say here is that it's really about putting up your hand when you see an opportunity and going after it. There really is no ceiling. We decide what the ceiling is. And I always believe, Akhil, that the best is yet to come. So wherever I am, hopefully 10 years down the line when we speak again, many more times, I hope to have added a few more feathers to my cap by that time.
Seriously, thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, I hope my voice is now clear.
Yes, much
Yeah,
better. Yes,
much
absolutely.
better. So I have removed my earphone. I understood the fault was there. But okay. So I mean, with all that illustrious career, I think it's also an example that your career may not directly relate to your degree itself. I mean, you can keep switching from one place to another if you have the zeal and the hard work and the passion to move on forward to. Because I'm seriously saying, I'm still again saying, media to cybersecurity, it's a different kind of a journey, but it's a good thing. I mean that's the way people should really look at it. Everything. With that, I mean, let me switch gears to the topic because that's the main theme here. So, post-COVID, I mean, there are many companies who are not only investing in what is going to happen in the newer technology, but there's also a threat which is looming around in terms of cybersecurity. I mean, in terms of if you look at some of the cyber crimes and other things which are happening all around, it has also increased with time, with more technology coming in. Like, for example, I just to give an example is uh, blockchain being told that it's one of the most secure thing, but if you see most of the money cyber security crimes are happening inside blockchain itself. And it has it and also same goes to generative AI. I mean, deep fake and all those things which are coming up. A lot more things are happening. So before we move to exactly what the cybersecurity situation will be, what is the landscape of that cybersecurity? What is the current state and how the companies are looking into it? What's your view on that, ma'am?
Well, absolutely. I think very pertinent and very key question, I would say. See, COVID was a time which was, it had many facets to it. It had the devastation facet to it, but it also, from a technology perspective, it had a facet where suddenly everything became, what we would have imagined to have taken decades. We started doing in months because that was the need of the hour, right? Uh, as that happened, cyber criminals realized that this is a golden opportunity because suddenly everybody had to, remotely work. People were very, very scared. So phishing attacks went up dramatically. They had spear phishing attacks. They would go directly, and they would normally use COVID-19 related lures, and try and get the people, into, transacting money and sending money, etc. Suddenly, because people were working from home, and there was so much a proliferation of, all kinds of devices, whether it is the OT devices, the operational technology devices, the interconnected devices, just a remote access element of it, the whole threat landscape increased for them, right? The whole surface increased. And then the awareness, right? A lot of people were not even aware that they were being conned. So this was also a time we saw that while there was, everything got accelerated. Even, getting aware about cybersecurity challenges, we saw that there was a certain a splurge of awareness around that, and people wanted to know, they wanted to understand. I was called to many of these events, and even in schools and colleges by organizations to just bring general awareness. So my whole team was working on that. What really came out during that time, Akhil, was also the supply chain vulnerabilities that existed, right? Suddenly we noticed that medicines were not reaching, food was not reaching. And there were so many challenges in the network itself because it is so interconnected. The whole business that we do is so interconnected. There was a large issue that we saw. And this was also a time when we noticed, Akhil, that because the organizations suddenly were, jolted, and the boards of the companies were jolted into considering this because it has cybersecurity impact is much larger than just the loss of money. It's a loss of brand, right? It's a majority of the times when a company is hit by a breach, many of the small companies never come back to life after that, right? So it's very serious, whether it's your brand or it's your money or your ability to come back or to resurface. Because if you've been attacked once, you can be rest assured you'll be attacked over and over again, unless you don't fix it. And it takes time to fix if you're not ready for it, right? Government became very active, and there are multiple regulatory changes that we saw. So the statements that I'm making, Akhil, are more from a global Asia Pacific and India also perspective, right? Just to give you a larger perspective. Across the globe, we saw organizations and governments becoming suddenly active. the recognition and the importance of this both was felt dramatically. Now, your question was on the changing landscape in 2024, or as we are moving along, what do we see? See, I saw the TEDx talk that you did, Akhil. I thought it was brilliant, right? Where you talked about internet, then you talked about how blockchain came, and then you talked about metaverse, and then you talked about the fact that now there's an advent of AI. And believe me, if I had to say that after all of the buzz that we had around the internet, right, and the work that we did around it, I think we are in a time and age right now with the advent of Gen AI, right? The world is changing at a pace which is uncomprehensible, let me put it that way. Something that was assumed to be a very future thing, what we used to see in sci-fi movies and stuff like that, it is today a reality. And cybersecurity today really is a business accelerator, and no longer is it like a CIO level conversation or a CISO level conversation. It's a board level conversation today, because as I said, there is so much at stake when it comes to cyber. Now, the Gen AI element of it, right, the generative AI element of it, it is ushering in a new world of threats actually. So normally people will ask, what will happen? Will cyber criminals activities change? So the answer to this can be in two ways. All the crimes that were existing in the yesteryears, they will all continue, right? Nothing will change there. They will only become sharper and more forceful and more targeted, right? Like, for example, phishing, and we'll come to deepfakes and we'll talk about that in a bit. So letting the context first. So whatever crimes existed will continue to exist, but they will become sharper, they'll become more targeted, and they'll be more impactful. Your ability to identify them will become even more difficult as a consumer, right? The other element is the whole Gen AI itself, right? All these LLMs that are coming through, that itself needs to be secure, because you can actually poison your LLMs, the data that you're using around that, the way the model is being used, and even the usage of the data or the output of these LLMs that comes out. That itself is a huge area of concern, right? So the threat landscape, as I was just trying to keep it simple, the threat landscape is changing from the perspective that what was continues, becomes sharper, and what is, there's a whole new area, a whole new surface area which has been created with these Gen AI models. So very, very critical. And also I want to, you made a very good point, Akhil, a couple of minutes back, when you said that, while technology is increasing, while awareness is increasing, cyber attacks are increasing. You're so correct, because the criminals are far more motivated perhaps than you and I are when we're trying to save our organizations and our country, right? There are multiple reports that are out, and I will not name any company because today I'm representing myself as a part of the industry rather than a company. There are multiple reports that are out, and a recent one that we did is called the X-Force Threat Intelligence Index report, which says that across the world, Asia Pacific is the most targeted geography in the world, right? And within Asia Pacific, India is at the top of the list when it comes to getting targeted. And the number of cybercrime or the cyber attacks have gone up almost 71% year on year. That's a huge number, right? We're basically doubling year on year, despite everything that's happening. So the point that we're trying to say is that cyber criminals are becoming very, very sophisticated. Today, we believe that it is a future, but it's really not. There was a time when we used to talk about, we'll get hacked. There is no concept of hacking anymore. It's just become another sideline business, let me put it, for the cyber criminals. Today, through the dark web and the other methods, they're actually able to identify valid accounts, and they're exploiting valid accounts by actually, using your identity, the lack of identity and access in certain companies. So they're basically moving into your systems rather than hacking into your systems, right? So that's becoming a very huge concern as we move along. Your data is becoming very, very critical. So I can go on and on and on, of how the world is changing and how we all need to be aware about it, because it is going to impact every human being and every industry.
I mean, you have a great point, ma'am, and I want to let me extend from your point which you have said. First thing is, you have said that India is one of the top in terms of the threat of cybersecurity. So I want to know exactly what is the current landscape in India. I mean, in the sense of whether the companies have woken up and they're doing something, or all those things. And secondly, when you say that government is now at high alert in terms of cybersecurity, uh, ma'am, we have seen the last history, if you look at it, the government, even if they try the best, the point is the technologies are always evolving faster than the government by the time they understand.
Correct.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, and especially in the Asian part of it, I would fairly say, and America as well. I mean, if you look at the recent cases of Google and Facebook, same happens. So, I mean, whether there is there any strategy change in terms of the governments across the world, any best practices they are doing it in terms of making sure that they also become part of the update of the technology so that they can understand it well. And secondly, what is happening in the Indian ecosystem in terms of cybersecurity?
Oh, absolutely. Let me give you step by step, because it's such a vast area, and I don't want to complicate it. So I'll try and keep it as simple as possible, right? Firstly, I would like to say that from an Indian perspective, right, we have done multiple surveys, and not only us, but many companies are doing this survey, right? And just to identify and place our finger on the point that where really is the Indian industry moving, right? Now, a couple of things I want to highlight to you. It is a fact, right? India is becoming the hub of technology and innovation for across the world. Majority of our centers, or you name the organization, you name the large IT company or a consulting company, you name anybody, right? Majority of their hubs, whether it's the research facilities or it is their centers of competencies, they're all coming up in India because of the kind of the skill that we have in the country. We're right now at a cutting edge. There was a point when people would talk about the fact that labor in India is at a certain rate, and hence India is a preferred destination. That is no longer the case. Today, India is at the helm of technology and innovation and being first right up there. And that's the reason why the world is looking at India as a shining star. India is one of those countries where, if you look at the world, there are certain countries that have been identified as countries that are expected to see hyper growth, right? In our area of Asia Pacific, and I'll give you a little bit larger rather than taking you through the world. If I look at Asia Pacific, the three countries that have been identified as the ones which are looking at hyper growth, right? And wherever you will see hyper growth, you will also see hyperactivity of all kinds, right? Including criminal activities. So the countries are India, number one, Indonesia, and Saudi, right? These are three countries that have been identified as high performance, more than high performance, high growth areas, right? So a lot of investments across the world is coming into these countries. Now, because of that, there is a lot of interest in the country. I'll give you certain statistics here. When I say that we are the most targeted country as India, there is an order of priority in which we see where are the attacks really taking place. A few years back, the area that used to be most targeted was the financial sector, right? And naturally so. There's no doubt about it. Then, close to COVID and around COVID times after that, we realized that healthcare had started to move up the chain, right? While financial continued to be the number one top targeted sector. You know what happens in the last 2 years, Akhil? Which is the most targeted sector? It's our manufacturing sector. That has taken number one slot. Financial has become number two, healthcare has become number three. And why is that happening? The reason is because in your manufacturing also comes all your, so, when you club the industries together, your entire thing around critical infrastructure that you have, right? All of that starts falling in these areas. With the advent of AI, and in the areas of OT, operational technology, OT, Internet of Things, or interconnected stuff like interconnected vehicles, etc., all of this is gaining a lot of importance. And all the areas that used to be at one point of time kept very secluded, like all your OT environments where you have manufacturing like oil and gas, electricity, etc., with the digitalization that is happening, it is coming into the fold of industry, let me put it, interconnectivity. And the moment you have interconnectivity, you will also have the challenge of somebody being able to breach and come into your systems, right? So we have realized, or the reports say that the top area that is getting targeted is manufacturing. Healthcare data. Why is healthcare data so important, right? I don't know how many of you remember, and because this is, we are discussing it with a very large audience, so I'll try and not take names here, but I will allude to certain elements that have taken place, and some of you may be able to relate to it. At a certain time in US, a very prominent personality was very upset that his personal data or his medical records may come out, and that those medical records could change the flavor of elections, right? In Singapore, it happened again. The medical we call it the IHIS, right, which is the heart of the hospitals. It's like a consortium, or it's like a group of hospitals put together, right? That got breached, and the Prime Minister's medical health records and a lot of other influential people's personal information came out. The Prime Minister actually went on record, right? And he kept a press conference to say, it's okay, it's fine if my details have come out. What I'm really trying to say here is that the data that we have, our data, right, is very, very critical, whether you're a very well-known personality, like the head of a government. It could topple critical information about individual can topple governments. Okay, I'm just giving you an example of why data becomes so critical and why healthcare suddenly became, it is not only to breach the systems and take ransomware, right? Ransom money. That is only one of the elements, but that is the smaller of the element, you'll be surprised to know. The people are after the personal data of individuals. Now with quantum computing coming on, right? Our cryptography or the cryptographic keys that we have, right? Imagine you have Gen AI, you have quantum computing in place, and then you have smart cyber criminals who may be actually stealing your data today from various sources, because we put our data everywhere, right? And this is not an India statement I'm making, but I'm making general statements. Our data is available in so many systems which are perhaps not secure, right? Every breach you see that how much of your personal data is actually, you realize, is out there with hotels, with your airlines, with your medical records, etc., etc. All of that data can be utilized when required in whichever manner it may deem fit at that point of time. So even stuff which is encrypted today may not have strong enough encryption in the world of quantum, which again is not far away, by the way, right? That also is knocking at the door now. In the next 3 to 5 years, you will actually see the impact of quantum computing and the fact that the keys will start getting broken. So what I'm really trying to say here, Akhil, is that there is multiple facets where we have to think about cyber. It's a very large field. And I must say kudos to the Indian government, right? Kudos to the Indian government. They are doing a phenomenal job in the last few years. We've seen a dramatic improvement and dramatic, focus around cyber, about digitalization, about doing it safely. In fact, I will not name the minister, but I am also part of AmCham India. And I've been having regular conversations with certain ministers, especially the IT minister in India. And I can tell you the knowledge that our leaders have today and the knowledge that our bureaucrats have today about technology and cyber, it is unbelievable. It's like talking to an SME when we're talking to them. And the focus, it's like, everything had to be done yesterday. That's the kind of focus. They're looking for hundreds of CISOs because it's a very critical function. Government has taken out a number of RFPs at this point of time, trying to secure their informatics, the National Informatics Center, Indian Railways. They're coming up with the DPDP Act. They're looking at AI Act. We already, as organizations or as bodies that are supporting the government, we're actually working on papers to help the government say, this is what the industry believes, industry point of view. We are sharing with the government to say, this is when if you're coming up with an AI Act, like European Union has come up with their AI Act, right? Many countries are coming up with those. Learning from them, imbibing what we understand from the industry perspective, we are creating point of views for the government so that Indian government is also able to leverage. And they are, believe me, they're absolutely outstanding. The entire think tank that they have, the people working on it, the focus, the energy that we see in this area is absolutely tremendous.
I think we have covered a lot of points in terms of the India, the ecosystem, the government. And I think with that, I think can we go one step back? Because the students and the people also may want to know what is exactly the risk factor associated with generative AI in terms of cybersecurity, and also what is the new advantages and benefits which are coming with the AI ecosystem for the cybersecurity area. That if you can highlight from the industry point of view.
Absolutely. So I'll give you certain, I'll give you certain flavors, right? We'll talk about the threats, etc. See, what is happening is there are two elements that again I'll go back to, and then I'll give you certain examples so that all our young colleagues can grasp the impact of something like this, right? Now, um, as I said, there are two elements now with the generative AI discussion. One is around how do we use generative AI to better our security posture, right? That's the whole discussion, and I'll talk about that. The second discussion is that with this entire Gen AI coming into picture, which means all this discussion around the large language models, et cetera, how do we actually secure the Gen AI models themselves, the data that is getting input, the data that is getting outputted, and how we're using the data. So there's a whole concept out there. Now let's look at some of the use cases of generative AI, right? Let me just bring certain examples here. I don't know whether, I'm sure a lot of, kids are far smarter than most of us here today, at least more smarter than me for sure, right? And would know many such examples and many such stories that are coming around. I'm sure you would have heard of this incident that happened in Hong Kong, where we lost 200 crores, right? Upwards of 250 million, right? 200 crores was actually siphoned off, actually transferred, right? Legally transferred because of deep fakes. Now, generative AI, the impact of generative AI on real life. Let me give you a few examples, right? And I'll take examples of one by one and why guardrails are important, and we'll talk about that. Let's start with what are the kind of challenges that we are seeing with generative AI and how is it impacting us today in our real lives. All of you would have heard of deepfakes, right? You would have seen Putin versus Putin. You would have seen Tom Hanks versus Tom Hanks. You would have seen Shashi Tharoor versus Shashi Tharoor, right? If you just go and type this. And, it is impossible to make out the difference of who's who, right? Which one is real and which one is fake. I'll give you an example as I keep going through this discussion. In Hong Kong, very recently, at the beginning of the year, there was 200 crores that got moved by a company's finance official. It was an act that was carried over 1 week. The cyber criminals created deep fakes of some of the key people, including the CFO. And they got the person who had to transfer the money to some 14, 15 different accounts in Hong Kong. They got him on a call, and as if the CFO was instructing the individual, the CFO and his entire team was on the con call, all deep fakes, instructing this gentleman who had to do the transfer to make a transfer of about 200 crore rupees to different bank accounts. And this gentleman went ahead and made that transaction. Post making the transaction, he realized that something seems to be amiss. And then when they went in to identify what really happened, they realized it was a deep fake attack or a deep fake fraud that happened with them. Fake news and disinformation campaigns, another area, right? Now, with irrespective of which country we talk about, how disinformation campaigns about candidates, about situations, can manipulate the public opinion and can undermine our critical institutions because certain comments are getting made, right? Whether it was if you remember the Pakistani, the gentleman, without naming, or maybe we can just talk about it. It's public information. So Imran Khan is in the prison. Yet there is a whole content or data that's coming out, or a speech that is coming out saying we won the election, right? Whether it's phishing or social engineering attacks you talk about, right? They're all becoming sharper with generative AI. Because you can now create what used to take months to create, as if suppose our criminals were trying to create a phishing campaign. Something that would take months to create is now getting created in minutes. And not only is getting created in minutes, it is more impactful because it is talking to the individual in the individual's language, knowing what is going to make a difference for them. So the entire all of these attacks, whether it's in the form of emails or messages, you'll get, I'm sure a lot of you would have got WhatsApp messages, right? Or whether it's somebody talking to you. Like you could have an example where you're getting a call from, say, your mother. And if you're a working professional, for example, or your mother, if she's a working, or your father, if they're working people, they'll suddenly get a call from maybe in your voice saying, Mom, I'm in the hospital, I need money. Can you please transfer the money? And your mother, before she will even think about whether it's a real call or it's a fake call, her first reaction will be to move money. So they play at our sentiments. I mean, what is going to impact whom, right? For elderly, they will always use their children. For children, they'll use their parents or friends or something like that, right? Depending on what's going to move you. And you'll suddenly transfer the money. Now it's going to the next level. You will get a video call and it'll appear as if it's you who's speaking to your mother, but it's not you. It's your deep fake, right? And your mom will, is thinking she's talking to you and she will make the transaction. So all of this is becoming even bigger. And this is all with the use of Gen AI. And I just want to connect it a little bit to, what Akhil had talked about in his TEDx talk, metaverse. Metaverse is like a virtual environment that you live in, right? Practically, your avatar lives exactly the way you live in real world. Your avatar lives in your metaverse. Now, the way I'm talking, the way my eyes move, the way my face moves, the way my hands move, all of these gestures are being captured. So tomorrow, maybe not even tomorrow, even today, if somebody was to create my deep fake and show it to me, I will not be able to make out whether it's me who's speaking or it's my deep fake, because they capture your nuances, your gestures to the smallest and the minutest level, so that it makes it impossible, practically impossible, to identify a deep fake. Of course, technologies are working on it. I'm just giving you the false side, or the side where it's getting impacted. And of course, there's always be with the protecting side. What are we doing about it? Today we're talking, a lot of people are using elements like ChatGPT and other openly available models, right? And these models, I would always tell, for students, it's okay if you're trying to do some kind of a search and all of that stuff. But when you're doing serious work, you should not be using these, openly available models, right? For different reasons, and we can get that on a different date. But I'm just giving you an example that even such models, which are so-called mature, can be used as, models that are actually going to create malware, and you can distribute malware through that. And we tested it out, by the way. Our researchers had used one of these openly available LLM model, and we created a malware by running through or evading their guardrails, getting in, asking the system to create a certain malware. After it was created, we asked it to make it an executable. It did it. And then we said, we would now like to distribute it. And that is where we stopped. The reason is we did not want to do that. It was just to see, can these LLM models, if not protected, if they don't have the right guardrails with them, can they be misused? And we were able to prove within a couple of researchers in a couple of hours were able to break the guardrail, right? So you can actually be using, and you don't need to be a technical expert, by the way, right? Today, a cyber criminal can be as simple as somebody who knows English, but knows what is the right prompt to be given to evade the guardrail and enforce that the system is creating something for you, right? So everything is about that. So what I'm trying to say is that cyber crime is becoming easier, right? It's becoming faster, and it is becoming more impactful. That is the reason why we need people on the other side to protect, and we'll come to that, okay? So I just want to bring you to some of these elements of how Gen AI is being used to basically, create havoc in our lives. Now let's talk of the second element, right? We've been talking of generative AI. Now, generative AI is basically a use of models, right? Large language models or different language models, right? Now, your model itself can be compromised, right? To the fact that it can create havoc. What are the ways in which it can be done, right? We have to all understand a little bit about that. I'll try and keep it most non-technical, but there's something called prompt injection. And I'll give you 4 or 5 areas in which you can, just to appreciate how your LLMs can be compromised, right? There's something called prompt injections. Prompt injection is basically, these are vulnerabilities that can be introduced into your LLMs. And this involves basically what? you give crafty, like I was just telling you, breaking the guardrails, you give some crafty inputs, which the system is able to accept. And this leads to undetected manipulation, right? You've given something, the system has accepted without doing a proper check. And because of that, it has gotten impacted, its data has gotten impacted. Okay. And this can lead to maybe data exposure. It could lead to some unauthorized actions, which was not supposed to be doing. And this is basically serving your crime, your criminal, right? You could have cases of poisoning the data, because at the end of the day, LLM is constantly consuming data from different sources. And we all believe they should be most reliable sources. But it's consuming data, learning from there, and then likewise output is coming out, right? So if the LLM is given some text which is inaccurate and it poisons the information they have or spoils the data it has, you can imagine the havoc it can create, misinformation that it can create. Okay, you could have cases where sensitive information is getting disclosed because data leakage from the LLM is not controlled, right? So you will have critical, important information for organizations, for critical infrastructure, or whatever you're trying to do, right? The most critical information that you're trying to hold from the whole world, if there is, if your LLM is not, properly secured, your data leak could happen from there. Then there is something called hallucinations, which you would have heard about, which is when you start overly relying on these large language models, and they are continuously taking out information and inappropriate content because they're creating something and giving it to you. And if you're not validating that, right, as an organization or as an individual, you may have an oversight, and you may consume the data incorrectly. It was not supposed to be, and this can lead to many larger issues. It could be legal, it could be reputational, etc., right? And then of course is the theft itself. You can actually steal AI using APIs, right? So some of your machine learning models, right, the model itself can be stolen through APIs, etc. So what I'm really trying to say is that it's a huge world out there, whether you're using it for adversarial purposes, which is what I just discussed with you, or we can, and going forward, I'll just wait if Akhil has a different question. Otherwise, we will go into saying these are the disadvantages, or these are the risks that we are running. These are the downsides that we see with something like that, or these are the negative ways in which we are going to be using this. So how do we protect it? How do we do something else? So we can talk about that, right? Akhil? Hello, am I audible? Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
Extremely sorry, ma'am. Just last minute, I think some glitch happened in internet. I mean, we are
Okay,
in India, sorry. So,
no
so
worries,
it
no worries.
happens. It happens. So I can conclude the last part which you said was exactly the threats which are happening from generative AI, and you're concluding it with exactly the intent. I think audience might have already seen it. Maybe I have missed hardly 1 or 2 sentences. That's it. I came back after that. So I think let me extend this. So I mean, I think you have already taken a lot of effort in terms of giving the boundary of exactly how the AI, generative AI, and cybersecurity, the world is moving forward to. I think it's a huge explanation. I mean, really, the chapter is completely complete. Now, let me put this as what is the role of the IT companies in terms of the building the cybersecurity awareness and also to make sure that you're preventing cybersecurity crime to happen? Because I mean, what you're saying, the calamity and the outcome, the impact is much larger in the cybersecurity. So it's important to prevent it rather than having it and then analyzing it how to defend that. I mean, it's important to prevent it. So what's the IT companies' roles which are happening around, especially in the Indian ecosystem? And I want to also make it combined, connect with what does the future for workforce look like in terms of this area? What is the skill set you expect in the next 4 or 5 years the leader should have?
No, I think it's a beautiful question. Thank you so much, Akhil. So, Akhil, I think, as you rightfully mentioned, that we've spent a lot of time just so that, all our listeners are aware of the kind of downsides. There's definitely a lot of work and a lot of excellent work that is keeping us a step ahead of the cyber criminals or the perpetrators. There's a lot of work that's being done there. Let me give you, a couple of areas how is Gen AI, firstly, going to be helping us? I think that's very critical. And I'm going to talk purely in the terms of cyber, right? So the biggest advantage, and I will try and take your question in 2, 3 sections, Akhil. First, let me give you just a snapshot view of how we can, what's the benefit of using Gen AI, right? So let me tell you couple of quick pointers. The biggest value that you will see of Gen AI in our industries across the board, whether it's an individual, whether it is your company, or whether it's the government, will be around productivity. Your productivity gains both at a human level and at a programmatic level or a tech level, excuse me, will be the one largest, if there was one takeaway, if one has to take, would be the productivity gains. See, today our SOC analysts are spending a lot of time in manually investigating, manually validating the incidents that are coming, right? And almost 81% of their time is spent in doing that. Our analysts can be supercharged, which means that all this manual work that they're doing today can all be automated. In fact, it is already getting done as we speak. So all your repetitive tasks will be taken away. You will be spending time, our people will be spending time in more value-adding activities. The security content, whether it is your workflows, whether it's the policies, whether it's detecting an incident, all of that will become much faster, right? So it's really about, it'll be like human plus plus, right? And our ability to react, right, will become extremely fast. It's already happening. All of us are, as you said, in IT companies, what are we doing? All IT companies are today leveraging AI in some form or the other. All of us have our own kind of products and services around it. And we are already starting to give back the benefit of AI in the business environment to the businesses, to the government, etc. Right? So one fear I keep hearing, and I want to, ally that fear with all our listeners here, that AI does not mean it is going to replace people. It means it's going to augment our people. So people will start working at a higher level rather than working at a manual level, right? So it will augment cybersecurity limits. It will allow them to do much more. And it will expand our limits, both whether it's mentally or our physically our ability to do. It will take out to a very large extent the burnouts that teams have because of overworking. So those are the kind of areas that we see that efficiency and efficacy will come both from people's response as well as in the output that we get from, with the advent of Gen AI. Now, the question that you asked is from an IT company's perspective, what can we do? See, there are certain areas that majority of us, especially large organizations like ourselves, which I represent, right? We are doing a lot in the area of AI. In fact, our journey of AI started not now, but I think decades back. Having said that, couple of areas in Gen AI that we think all IT companies should be looking at. First and foremost is a pledge that we will be only using trustworthy AI, right? For all our enterprise use. That's number one. And as a part of that, we have to make sure that as we are deploying large language models or Gen AI, prototypes or assistants or whatever, as we're deploying that, we have to make sure we do 2, 3 things. And this is in conjunction. It's not an IT company only. It's an IT company with the company we are working for. So together, it's a joint activity of making sure that all the training data is secure, making sure that the models, the LLM models that we create are secure. And we must ensure that the guardrails around the AI models to make sure that data is secure and there is no data leakage or extraction or poisoning, etc., that is happening. That is from the perspective of protecting our Gen AI models and data. The second is about leveraging AI in security, and all IT companies, I believe, should be doing it with the help of all the youngsters who are on the call here and are interested in cybersecurity. There is almost 3.5 million jobs that are available right now globally. The one area where we have the maximum shortage of skill is cyber. So we invite all of you to show, to read about this, and learn about it. It's an amazing field. You're getting ready for tomorrow, right? And coming to the second point, I was talking about leveraging AI in security. So basically all your repetitive tasks that we are doing in our environments, we are all working towards making sure that we automate our workflows. We generate sharper content so that our analysts are doing a better job and a higher level job, and making sure that our companies, our governments, whomever we are supporting, we are able to give a turnaround time which is faster and which is more accurate, right? So from a skills perspective, we are doing a lot of work. Each IT company, I think, owes it to themselves and to, to the youngsters like yourselves and to our own countries, that we actually partner in many ways to make sure that we are helping you upskill yourself or skill yourself in this area. And more of you should come into this, right? I also want to add here, it's a fallacy in case anybody has in their mind that this is an area which is, male dominated. It may be, but it invites and welcomes all women, because you can see I'm being a woman, I'm heading my area, and we bring a special something to the table, my dear girls. So please make sure that you take cyber seriously and come into this. This is going to be yet another huge area, and I'm preparing you for tomorrow. So, I mean, basically, these are all the things that Akhil, I wanted to bring to you. That as companies, we need to make sure that we make responsible AIs, and this is I'm talking about the technology companies. We make sure that we adopt AI, but trustworthy AI, and we must make sure that good governance around this is our mantra. We must invest in threat detection capabilities with our clients immediately. If we've not done it, we need to coach them, guide them. We need to make sure that whatever data we have as an organization, as an institution, we protect it. We make sure that only those people who need to have access, we call the zero trust concept, give minimum access to the role which is required, and only be able to do what they should be able to do. So for both your identity and access. And most importantly, I would say, while we come to all our clients and all our institutions and our friends to have them leverage us, I would just request that whoever you trust, have a trusted partner who's done this journey over and over again, so that they can take you with them on this journey. Oh yes,
Very awesome.
that's the part, right? You asked me one more question.
Okay,
Students, right?
so I think what I can do is that question I will put with the last one, because last one is very similar to that.
Okay.
So because anyway we are running to the line, because you have other meeting also lined up after this. So I mean I will try to close it by 12. So I think we have connected AI, the generative AI landscape. We also connected cybersecurity, and also we have discussed about Asia and India landscape, the government's intervention. So I think we have almost connected most of the key points, so that at least a person who is very general, having a general understanding of cybersecurity, and they want to exactly know about it, I think it's more than sufficient enough to give them the ecosystem. With that, I think I want to come to the last question of it. That is, first of all, if somebody wants to have a career in cybersecurity, so what is the future skill set you see in the next 3-4 years? And the very critical question for all the students, that for all the aspiring students, what is a career advice from you? I mean, by your experience, that how they should look forward their career.
Absolutely, beautiful question. And let me handle this in two parts. So first, let me talk about the cybersecurity as an area of focus and why you should look at it, right? I truly believe that as the world is moving today, the dynamism in the world, in the industries, in the government, in technology, cybersecurity is now, hand in glove with everything that we're going to be doing, right? Our lives are becoming virtual, and I mean, you can just go on and on, whether it's rocket, whether it's drones we're talking about, whether it is robotics that we're talking about, whether it's healthcare, critical infrastructure, you name it. I think 100% of the industries are going to be impacted, are already impacted, and can leverage cybersecurity skills. So why I say that, this is an area everybody should think about, and students more so you should think about, because you should be entering into areas which have a life way beyond what you see today, right? And one of the sunrise industries, I would say, would be cybersecurity. Now, what are the kind of skills I think which are going to become very important? It's a dynamic world. It will change, children and wonderful students. It will change, but I can give you a little bit of maybe a bird's eye view. See, cybersecurity fundamentals, whether it is around principles or protocols, just reading up around cybersecurity fundamentals is very important. Network security, cryptography, secure coding, and secure frameworks. These will continue to be the flavor of the day as we move ahead. They will only become more important. Cloud security. Teams, everybody's moving towards cloud. So being solid on cloud security principles, architecture, very important. AI and machine learning. Okay, again, we discussed a lot about it. The more I say, the less it is. That's how important it is, data science, etc. The less it is. This entire thing about connected cars, connected vehicles, you name it, right? So all the work around Internet of Things security or operational technology security, anything around these areas, again, very critical. The entire area around threat intelligence, responding, forensics, all of that has become very, very important, right? So that is again, and we always had ethical hacking, penetration testing, always was there. But add on to it intelligence, add on to it forensics becomes very, very critical, right? And of course, the whole thing around software, secure software development, right? That is going to continue to be key and become even more key as we move ahead. So I would say, if I had to sum it down, these would be some of the key areas that I believe you should really, think about and continue to keep reading up about it. And or even there are lots and lots of certifications that are available. Try and see if you can do certain certifications around that if you're interested in this area. The mantra I would say for the youngsters on this call, to be very honest, I think I need to learn a lot more from you. I see that the youngsters today, and I've got two young girls myself. I feel they're far more knowledgeable, far more inquisitive, and they know their minds far more than I ever knew when I was at their age. Having said that, I would not want to preach, but all I can say is that today the world is changing very fast. Every 3 to 5 years is a different world that we are seeing, right? And technology is moving really fast. By the time you understand one technology, it's already become obsolete, and there's something new that's knocking on the door. So constantly reading, constantly being curious of what's happening, constantly listening to people from the industry, constantly learning, and most important, my request is most important, be adaptable, right? Be like water. Whatever is the flavor of the day, become experts in that, right? But don't hold on to that only. As you see new things developing, please, fluidly keep moving on, because that's the only way. You and I, all of us, in fact, it's got nothing to do with students. We are as much a student at our age, and even maybe 10 years down the line, as you are. Because the day I lose my ability to be curious, my ability to learn, I'm already obsolete, right? So my request is, guy, to all the youngsters and the wonderful kids here on the call, please remain curious, please keep learning, and please remain adaptable, right? Nothing is forever, but change is the only real constant in life. So thank you very much.
Really, thank you so much, ma'am. Because I'm really glad that you have taken these the future workforce area in terms of cybersecurity. Also, you are giving the aspiring key exactly how to take up life in terms of a career of a person. First of all, really great in terms of exactly how you have taken the landscape. See, the toughest part is to talk about a technical subject the simplest way, and I think you have done it marvelously well. No, seriously, ma'am.
Very kind.
Because I can give a technical definition to something, but that's not the bigger point. To put in a simplified way that anybody who is listening to it understands, that's the key. As a teacher, I can tell you. That's the key. You have done it really, really well. I'm just saying serious. So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us time and giving us the exposure to a global landscape of exactly how cybersecurity looks like. I'm seriously saying it's a very toughest subject, and rare people we see that who can actually convince the audience to simplest way to understand. Well, seriously, that cybersecurity is a very technical and complex subject to on discussion, and most of the panel discussions are something even I also get confused after 1 hour exactly what they're talking about. So it's so complex, but you have given so simply that I want to continue again, but I know you have commitments. So what I can request you is that maybe in the future, if you have time and all those things, then we can have more conversations on these topics and new topics which will come out, because now every 3 4 months you see new things coming in. Like cybersecurity will have more extensions. So I think you may have much more to talk about. So with that, I want to conclude this webinar here. And thanks so much for coming, and thanks to all the audience who have been here, and all the people who are lively watching it from in YouTube and other platforms. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Akhil. I believe me, it's absolutely my honor and my pleasure. You're a very gracious and a very kind host. So thank you very much for all the wonderful words you said. And the way you conducted the entire session, I think that's phenomenal. And I want to thank all the youngsters, all the college students, the faculty, whoever's listening to us. I want to thank you for investing that 1 hour in us. It's a topic which is very close to my heart. I'm very passionate about the subject, and I want to welcome more and more of you into my industry. So, my sincere request: look at it seriously, enjoy it, and if you have any questions, it'll always be a pleasure to come back and have another conversation with you. So, Dr. Akhil, anytime, if the kids want me to come back, if you feel that I
So,
can
ma'am,
add.
we have almost 77 questions. So, I will not give you all those things. Yeah,
Okay.
but the time is running. So, what I'll do is I may mail some of them, which I can circulate back the answers, whatever you're going to give. So, please ma'am, you can, I think we can conclude it here. And with convenience time, Sunday or Monday, I'll give you the questions, some of the questions which you may think which can be answered. Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
And I just saw 3 questions, all of them on hacking. Is
Yeah.
being an ethical hacker a good career option? It's an excellent career option, guys. It's very good, and it'll not be done only as hacking. There's lots of stuff which comes along with it around forensics, etc., etc. So, answer is yes, it is a good career option. Yeah, that's all I
Thank you
could
so
see.
much. Yeah, sure. Take
Thank
it.
you.